العلم أشراف مطلوب وطالبه لله أكرام من يمشي على قدم. العلم نور مبين يستضيء به أهل السعادات والجهال في الظلم.
Right, where did we stop? Who knows? Well, I know where we stopped, like, who remembers? نعم. Say that again? Yeah, I know we're in Ja'ala, لكن نعم. On that point, صح? نعم. Al-Ja'ala. So now the Shaykh is mentioning the differences between Ja'ala and Ijara. In summary, what is Ijara? Is rent, leasing out, hiring out an item. What is Ja'ala, sisters? Reward money. Whoever finds my lost car, I will give him X amount of money. That is Ja'ala. And rent, obviously, as you know. Then the Shaykh mentions now, وَالْجَعَالَةُ أَوْسَعُ مِنَ الْإِجَارَةِ. He mentions that Ja'ala is awsa', is more general than Ijara. And he's going to mention a few things. First he says, لأنها تجوز في القرب. أعمال القرب. They mean by this, the fuqaha, ibadat that require a Muslim. For example, salah, adhan, and so on. The fuqaha, they say that Ja'ala is permissible for qurab, يعني for adhan and teaching Quran and so on. Lakin it is not permissible in Ijara. And we said that it is what? It is permissible. طيب. The next Ijara, the next difference the Shaykh says, rahimahullah, between the two, is ولأن العمل فيه يكون معلوما ومجهولا. طيب لأن عقد جائز. With Ijara, when you're renting something out, it has to be, or the amal, what you want done, and who is doing it, and the period of time that it needs to be done in, have to be ma'loom, it has to be known. Okay? So for example, you ask someone, I want to rent out your car. You need to state how long you're going to rent the car out for, how much you're going to rent it out for, and to whom you're renting it out to. Like with Ja'ala, it is not the case. It can be ma'loom and it can be majhool. Ma'loom we know. But how can it be majhool, meaning not known? For example, whoever finds my car keys for me gets this X amount of money. Whoever finds my lost car for me, the lost car, I am going to give him مثلا a £500 reward. Now that car, you know obviously what you're looking for, but do you know the amount of effort that you have to put in? No, you may find it around the corner, you may find it in another city. Do you know when you're going to find it? La, you may find it next week, you may find it 3 weeks time. Right? So that is also one of the differences. That is one of the differences. No. Also one of the differences is that Ijara is aqdun lazim. What is an aqd that is lazim? Huh? It is what? From both sides. No. No fasakh. It is binding. It is binding. Sahih is of three types, the aqd. Lakin if I say aqdun, or if the fuqaha say aqdun lazim, it means that it is binding for both parties. So Ijara is binding. As for aqdul Ja'ala, it is what? Jaiz. It is jaiz, permissible to make invalid. Sah? طيب, مثلا, so for example, if I say to you, if I set out a contract with you for 3 months, مثلا, or a year contract, the Ijara, I can't say, you know what, I've changed my mind, just give me my money back and you can take your item, whatever it was. It's not permissible for me to do, unless there's a legitimate reason. Like with Ja'ala, it is permissible. So for example, if I say, whoever finds my car for me, I am going to give him a £500 reward. So, whoever finds this, I'm going to give him a £500 reward. That is permissible. But what if I say in a week's time, he still hasn't found the car, and I say, you know what, I don't even want the car anymore. Or someone else has found the car. That means I am allowed to say, I don't want you to look for it anymore. And he can turn around and say, listen, I don't think I'll find the car, therefore I'm not going to look for it anymore. That is permissible, right? However, any expenses incurred, any expenses that have been incurred, then he has to pay for those expenses. طيب, and I think we studied that. طيب. Then the Shaykh says rahimahullah, the next مسألة وتجوز إجارة العين المؤجرة لمن يقوم مقامه لا بأكثر منه ضررا. The next مسألة the Shaykh is saying rahimahullah, if you've got an item that you've rented out, are you allowed to let it out again? Are you allowed to sublet? That is the mas'ala that we're talking about. Right? So the Shaykh says, وَتَجُوزُ, it is permissible to sublease the item, the object, or the thing that you have, the ayn that you have. The ayn is object. It doesn't mean the ayn in the eye. It means the object that you have. It is permissible for you to rent it out. لِمَنْ يَقُومُ مَقَامُهُ, for the person that is going to be a substitute on your behalf. لَا بِأَكْثَرَ مِنْهُ ضَرَرًا. Lakin it is not permissible to give it to someone who is going to use it in a way that is going to harm the object or the item or the thing, or someone who's going to use it in a different way to the way you would have used it. مثلا, for example, I rent out a 1-bedroom flat. طيب? And I know I'm going to be away for the next month. I can get someone to come in there and pay the rent to me for the next month. Pay the rent, obviously, on behalf of me for the next month. So I rented out a flat, a 1-bedroom flat. I can get someone else, and I know I'm not going to be there for the next month. I can get someone else to now stay in that flat and give me the ijag, the money, the rent. Why? Because the benefit of this house is mine. I own the benefit. The benefit is living in it. So now I'm allowed to sublease it. But the person I'm subleasing it to, it has to be someone, مثلا, a single person, or a person with one, مثلا, just a couple, or maybe maximum one child. Why? Because it is a 1-bedroom. Can I sublet it to a family of 8, مثلا? Okay, so can I lease it to a family of 8, Muhammad? No, Muhammad says no. Mubarak, you said what?
Yeah, if you have an agreement with the owner that you have 8 people in there trying to rent it.
Okay. So Mubarak said that if you had an agreement with the person that owns the land, the place, that you can bring a person, that's different. That is, I'm talking about the asl. If there was no contract written, because what you've just mentioned is the urf, or a condition. If a condition has been placed, that's different. Because, so first and foremost, let me finish this masala and I'll come to that masala. Who says you can't? Muhammad, you say I can't lend out to a family of 8. Who says you can? Naam, you're all right, I can't. Why? لا بأكثر منه ضررا. Because the family of 8, are they going to use it as the same way that I would have used it? No, they're going to use it in a different way. They're going to use it in a different way. طيب. Lakin, if I was to get a family, a single person, or just a couple, or one child, maybe maximum 2 children, that's okay, because the way they're going to use it is similar to the way that I'm going to use it. مثلا, for example, if I rent out a car, I'm allowed to sublease it, I'm allowed to give it out to someone. طيب. Lakin, can I lend it out to someone who's going to be moving large goods? And someone who's going to use it as a removal car? La, I'm not allowed to do that. Why not? It is not used like that. It is used, I would not have used it like that. So it is being used in a way that is بِأَكْثَرَ ضَرَرًا, I mean, it is more harmful. It causes harm. Or it causes it for it to be worn out. Is that understood? So you can sublease, but to a person who's going to use it in the same method as you, in the same manner as you. However, if there's a contract saying no, you cannot lease it out to someone else, then you must abide by that. Is that understood? So مثلا now, subleasing in many housing organizations and councils, is that permissible? No. So you can't say, listen, I pay rent, and Sheikh Sa'di said, يجوز إجارة المعين المؤجرة. No, you can't say that. Why? Because the shard is different. And al-Muslimuna ala shurudih. Muslims are upon their shurud. طيب. Then the Shaykh says in the next mas'ala, the 5th mas'ala of this chapter, وَلَا ضَمَانَ فِيهِمَا بِدُونِ تَعَدٍّ وَلَا تَفْرِيدٍ. And there is no demand, they don't have to pay No, that's permissible. So the brother said if there's a landlord and he lends he sublets to an agency or gives it to an agency who are also going to lease it out, but they use it as an Airbnb, that's permissible because he's allowed that to happen. He's allowed that to happen, the landlord himself. Okay, but if he hasn't allowed it to happen, then it is not permissible. Why? Because what is the difference between Airbnb and normal renting out? Normal renting out, you probably get 2 people a year, or maybe one person stays in there for years. Like with Airbnb, you're going to get how many people? Maybe in a month you can get 10 people using that. So each one staying there 2-3 nights. That's going to be أكثر منه ضررا. They're going to use it in a way that is going to harm the place. طيب الله يبارك فيك. Okay, so the brother saying that's a good question. That it is connected to this masala. If obviously when you're working from home, you're renting out a place, you live there, right? But you're working from home. Now your landlord doesn't know that you're working from home. Is that permissible? If you're going to use it in a way that is similar to the way that you would normally live, then that is fine. Like if you're using it in a way that is totally different, the usage is totally different, then it is not permissible. For example, let's say your business is, you hire out centers. You hire out centers, different centers. You sub-hire out centers for events that take place. And then during COVID, obviously all centers were closed. So you decided to make your house be that place that is rented out for different events. You're going to get so many different people coming through the door, using it in a way that is different to how you would normally do it. If you get a group of people that want to dig all day, or that want to use carpentry, for example, and all day it's like a workshop, they're going to turn it into a workshop. That may not be permissible, because when you're using it as a workshop, or a blacksmith is using it as a workshop, or you use it kind of like a garage for a mechanic, you're going to use it in a way that may harm the actual structure of the building, because there's going to be things flying around and so on. So it might not be permissible in that sense. But if you're working from home in the sense that you're using a computer, or you're meeting clients and things like that, it's fine, because you're not using it in a way that is going to harm a property. طيب. The next mas'ala is a mas'ala that we've studied so many times, which is daman. The person, if anything happens to the item that is rented out, then there is no harm, or often there is no guarantee or no compensation upon the person that is renting it out, unless he has some sort of shortcoming, unless he left out something that he was meant to do, or he did something which he wasn't allowed to do. طيب. Is that understood? نعم. And also there's a قاعدة الأمين لا يضمن الأمين لا يضمن إلا إذا تعدى أو فرط. I think you've written that before. الأمين لا يضمن إلا إذا تعدى أو فرط. So that person is the Amin. Who is the Amin? Yadul Amana. We studied that somewhere along the line, right? Yadul Amana and Yadul Taman. Yadul Amana is the person that gets it in a way that is permissible. In a way that it is permissible. طيب, then the Shaykh says رحمه الله وفي الحديث. So the Shaykh is now going to mention the evidence. وفي الحديث, and in a hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said أعطوا الأجير أجره قبل أن يجف عرقه. Give the labourer, the one that's working for you, give him his wage, his salary, قبل أن يجف عرقه, before obviously his sweat dries. Meaning, give it to him immediately. Lakin, that is not always the case. For example, if a person agrees with his manager to be paid monthly, a person cannot call the manager at the end of the day and say, I had a hard day at work, you need to pay me now, because the Prophet ﷺ said, أعطوا الأجير أجره قبل أن يجف. You can't say that. Why? Because the agreement was what? Monthly. Whether it's weekly, monthly, wherever it may be, or daily. So that goes back to the condition. Like in the meaning of the hadith is give the person his right. طيب, there's another mas'ala which is connected, which is similar to that, and the fuqaha talk about sometimes, which is called al-razq. Al-razq. Alif, lam, ra, zay, za, qaf. Al-razq. And in summary, that just means the money that the Baytul Mal gives out, the treasury, the Muslim treasury, the Baytul Mal, the money that it gives out. So for example, the Baytul Mal, the treasury of the land, they would give out a certain amount of money to the Qudat, the judges, to the Imams, to the Mu'adhineen, for example. So that is also a masala that is talked about in the fuqaha, in the books of the fuqaha. So the scholars, the teachers of hadith, the mufassirun, those people teaching in the masajid. In the past, the dawla would be provided for them. Also, it would be provided to students of knowledge as well in the past. Why? Because they're carrying out something that concerns the whole ummah. طيب, the next bab, Babu Luqata wal Laqid. طيب, this bab, this next chapter, inshallah we're going to finish, it's a short chapter, it relates to lost and found. It relates to lost and found. And al-laqid is like foundling, I think it's called. When you find the child, when you find the small baby. When you find the small baby. And that is going to be towards the end of the chapter. طيب, the Shaykh says, rahimahullah, وَهِيَ عَلَى ثَلَاثَةِ أَضْرُبٍ. It is of three types. It is of three types. First and foremost, al-luqata. Al-luqata is مال أو مخصوص أو مال أو مختص ضل عن ربه. مال أو مختص ضل عن ربه. I want to make it easier. مال ضل عن ربه. It is wealth that has been lost by the one that owns the money, the wealth. It is lost wealth, lost items basically. طيب. The Shaykh says رحمه الله وهي على أضرب, and it is of three types. So when you find a lost item, or lost items in general, are of three types. The Shaykh says أحدها ما تقل قيمته كالصوت والرغيف ونحوهما فيملك بلا تعريف. So the very first one he says ما تقل به أو ما تقل قيمته, that which has little or no value. A lost item which has little or no value. Something which is tafi, it has no value. And he says kasaldi, like a whip, or a gharif, or a loaf of bread, or something which is similar to it. For example, a siwak, a pen. That is the first type. What is the hukum? So you know where it says fayumlaku? On top of that, put hukum, al-hukum. The ruling is what? The ruling, as he is about to say, is فَيُمْلَكُ بِلَا تَعْرِيفٍ. The hukum, the hukum is what? The ruling is what? The Shaykh says, rahimahullah, فَيُمْلَكُ بِلَا تَعْرِيفٍ. It is owned, meaning it becomes your property without ta'rif, without putting out a notice, without notifying anyone, without having to put out i'lan, or notice saying, I found an item. It is those things that are of little value or no value. And when we look at who it's value to, we look at this fuqaha, they say min awsat nas, people that, the general, the normal people, and they min awsat nas, not the extremely wealthy and not the extremely poor, the middle. Why? Because sometimes what can happen is a very wealthy person may lose a mobile phone, it means nothing to them. Sah? Or someone that is poor, he may lose one banana and it's the end of the world to him. Sah? Or one small biro pen and it's taqum al-dunya. It is the end of the world for him. Like normally, if a person loses a pen, normally, unless it's a Parker pen, if a person loses a normal pen, if you lose a pen out somewhere in the market or whatever, or if you leave something in someone else's house, you're not going to really go back and say, listen, I left my pen, give me my pen. Or you're not going to go back to the shop and say, listen, I left an item here. What is it? It's a pen. that you just can't be bothered going back. Right? So the item or the consideration is to what is considered not valuable to the common folk. طيب, the hukum is for yumlak, it becomes yours and you don't have to notify anyone. So you find the pen on the floor, you just pick it up, you can take it. But if you know who it belongs to, that is different. However little it means or value, you still need to give it back to that person. So even if you see a pen, if you see someone get their hand out of their pocket and they drop a pen, you can't now wait for him till he disappears and take that pen and say it's of no value. You need to wait, you need to tell them you've dropped your pen. Even if it is a box of tissues. Even if it is a box of tissues, you need to tell them that you've dropped your item. So that is the first type. That is of the first type. And the Prophet ﷺ said in authentic hadith, لَوْلَا أَنِّي أَخَافُ أَن تَكُونَ مِنَ الصَّدَقَةِ لَأَكَلْتُهَا. The Messenger ﷺ found a date on the floor and he said, if it wasn't the fact that I feared then it could be from sadaqah, I would have eaten it. So he did not eat it, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why? Because it could be from sadaqah, and the Prophet ﷺ doesn't eat it. Sah? طيب. What is the mafhum of the hadith? What do we understand from this? If it wasn't sadaqah, if he knew it wasn't sadaqah, then he would have eaten from it. طيب. والثاني, questions after, yeah? Because I just want to finish this chapter quickly. Questions, like you write them down because you're going to forget them. طيب. والثاني, the second type of lost items is الضوائل التي تمتنع من صغار السباع كالإبل. Stray animals that are able to protect themselves from small predators. The Shaykh says كالإبل. Camels, for example. Camel is, if you ever come across a camel, obviously these examples are mentioned. Why? Because that is what the fuqaha were accustomed to. That's this from their traditions and so on. So if you find, for example, a stray animal that is able to protect themselves, then you should not get hold of it. You should not take it. You should not take it. And he says kal ibli, and the most common example is an ibil. So ibil is able, or the camel is able to protect himself from small predators, like foxes. A small animal is able to protect himself from that. An animal like the camel is able to protect himself from small predators, dogs and so on. Therefore, if you do see a stray camel, you should not pick it up. You should not take it and say, I'm going to hold on to it, or I'm going to take it. That is not where it comes down. That is not permissible. The Shaykh says, فَلَا تُمْلَكُ بِالْتِقَاطِ مُطْلَقًا. يعني الحكم, put الحكم on top of فَلَا. فَلَا تُمْلَكُ, it is not taken, it is not owned, بِالْالْتِقَاطِ, if you pick it up, مُطْلَقًا, unrestrictedly, in any case. In any case. طيب. So if you see a stray camel, it's not for you to take it. And the evidence is the Shaykh is going to mention at the end of the chapter. Why? Because it is able to protect itself. Fine. What about if you find the camel and you know who it belongs to? Huh? You need to take it back to him. You won't say, I'm not allowed to touch a lost item. No. You need to take it back to him. Because obviously now you know who it belongs to. And وَتَعَاوَنْ عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى. It becomes wajib for him to take it back. It becomes wajib for him to take it back. Because he knows who it belongs to. And if it is lost, then it is lost. طيب, وَالثَّالِثُ, and the third type of lost items are ما سوى ذلك, other than that, from other items, يعني any other object. فيجوز التقاطه ويملكه إذا عرفه سنة. طيب. The third is that which is anything other than that. For example, gold, silver, sheep, and so on. So if anything, mobile phones, books, if a person finds any of these items, the hukum is what? فَيَجُوزُ. Put hukum on top of فَيَجُوزُ. فَيَجُوزُ الْتِقَاطُهُ. It is permissible to pick it up and take it. وَيَمْلِكُهُ. And he owns it. It will become under his property. It will become his, something that he owns. إِذَا عَرَّفَهُ سَنَةً كَامِلَةً. If he announces it for a whole year. If he announces it for a whole year. مثلا, you find, 20 grams of gold. You find 20 grams of gold. You take it, number one. You pick it up. You pick it up. Secondly, you announce it for a year. Thirdly, after a year, if no one comes to you, you take it. It's yours now. Fourthly, if that person comes back somewhere along the line and says to you, that item that you were announcing a year and a half ago, it was mine, then you need to give it back to him. So there's 4 ahkam relating to that. Who can repeat them? Number 1, before that, you pick it up. First and foremost, you pick it up. Number 2, you announce it. Number 3, after a year it becomes your property. Number 4, should the owner come back somewhere along the line, even if it's 5 years later, you now give it back to him. طيب. I said write your questions down and inshallah we'll go through it later on because I want to finish the chapter. طيب. طيب. So it has to be announced. And how do you announce it? You announce it مثلا in the marketplace, or you can announce it where people gather around, nothing outside the masjid, for example, or if there's a conference you can announce it, or you can use social media, for example, or you can use social media, or if you left it at a shopping centre, if you found it at a shopping centre, مثلا you put an announcement outside the shopping centre on the door, you stick an announcement on there with your number on that sheet paper saying I've found an item. And obviously you don't describe the item that you found. You don't say, I found 20 grams of gold last year or 2 weeks ago, whoever owns it. Because you're going to get everyone calling you. Like, can you say, I found a lost item, or I found gold, for example, or I found a watch. And when that person does come to you, you don't say, is this the watch that you lost? You don't say that to him. Why? Because he's going to say, yeah, that's the one I lost. But what do? You say, describe it. You ask the person to describe it. You ask the person to describe it. And unfortunately, people are like hyenas when it comes to lost items. Sometimes you see these silly pranksters, they intentionally throw money under someone, and they say to that person, is this your money? And that person starts to fight with them, saying, yes, it is my money. And everyone knows it's his money because it's been recorded. So you don't obviously say the amount that is lost, or you don't describe it, you just say, I found an item, for example, gold. Anyone who has had an item lost, who's lost an item, then they should get back to me. Then the Shaykh says, rahimahullah, وعن زيد بن خالد الجهني رحمه الله قال رضي الله عنه قال جاء رجل إلى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فسأله عن نقطة فقال, a man came and asked the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم about a lost item, and he said, اعرف عصافها وبكاءها. Familiarize yourself with it, يعني get to know this item, familiarize yourself with it. ثم عرفها سنة, then announce it for a whole year. فإذا جاء صاحبها, if the person that owns it comes, then give it to him. وإلا, if he doesn't come, فشأنك بها, then take it, it is yours. قال فضالة الغنم, what about a stray sheep? قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, هي لك, it is for you. Only أخيك, or the person that will come after you, your brother that will come after you and take it. Only الذئب is for the wolf. So it is, you should take it obviously, otherwise you're going to take it, or the predator animal that is going to take it. قال فضالة الإبل, what about the ibil, the stray camel that I find? He says ما لك ولها, and what concern of it is yours? معها سقاؤها وحذاؤها, it has its water and it has its hoofs. And it can protect itself from the sun and so on, because it can move, and it has its water. So camels, for example, from the qudra of Allah Jalla wa Ala, camels can keep water in for a very long time, weeks on end. طيب. تجد الماء وتأكل الشجرة حتى يلقاها ربها. It will find water and it will eat from the earth until its Lord, or the one that owns it, finds it. So that is that hadith. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned that if you find something which is like a sheep or anything equal to it, which we studied, then you can take it, you should take it, announce it for a year. If the owner comes to you, give it to him. If not, then it's yours. Lakin for ibil and those sorts of things, then it is not for you to take. The next mas'ala, the Shaykh, so وَالْتِقَاطُ اللَّقِيدُ وَالْقِيَامُ بِهِ فَرْضُ كِفَايَةٍ. The next is foundling, I think it's called, when you find the baby. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, that happens sometimes. People sometimes wake up, maybe not so much here, like people wake up in certain countries and they find a baby outside their doorstep. right? Or they find the baby in the dustbin, or in the hospital. Right? So what should be done if a person does that? The Shaykh says, وَالْتِقَادُ وَالْقِيَامُ بِهِ فَرْضُ كِفَايَةٍ. Taking this child, small child, looking after it, nurturing it, because it is fardu kifaya. It is fardu kifaya. And al-laqit is man la abba lahu wa la It is the one that does not have an ab or father. وجد كذا يعني. It's just been found. It has been found. Or it could be صغير بني آدم لا يعلم أبواه. Or is the small child from Bani Adam, لا يعلم, it is not known, أبواه, or his father is not known, or his mother is not known. So it is fardu kifaya to look after him. فإن تعذر بيت المال فعلى من علم من حاله. طيب, with regards to where he should be provided for, or who should provide for him, first and foremost, the Baytul Mal, the Muslim treasury, the Baytul Mal. طيب, so in authentic narration from Umar radiallahu anhu, a man found a small child, and that he was a righteous person, and then Umar said to him, look after him and we will provide for him. You look after him and we'll provide for him. Provide for him. So it's from the Baytul Mal. And that is fardu kifaya. وَتَعَاوُنَ عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى. Allah Jalla wa Ala says, enjoying the good, work, cooperate with one another upon taqwa. And that is from the greatest of taqwas, where a person looks after a child. So first and foremost, if the child has money with him, for example, the person that left him there placed a large amount of money, sum of money with him, then the child is to be provided for using that money. That's number one. Lakin, if there's no money with the child, then he has to be provided for from the Baytul Mal, the Muslim treasury. طيب. Or if there is no Muslim treasury, then it has to be, or if they refuse to do so, then the person that found him, it is wajib for him to do it, to provide for him. The first option is if the child has money himself, meaning the baby, someone placed amount of money with him. طيب. But the second was what? Baytul Mal. There's no money with him, but then it goes to the Baytul Mal. The third option is what? The one that found him. The one that found him. Like, if the one that found him is not able to pay for it, then it goes back to the Muslim community, those who know. It is wajib upon them. Upon those people from the Muslim community that knows. That's why the Shaykh says, فَعَلَى مَنْ عَلِمَ بِحَالِهِ. It is upon the person who knows of his hal, who knows of this child. Who knows that this child is the person, someone found him and he has no one to provide for him. Then it is wajib upon that person that that knows of him. For example, if your neighbor says to you, I found this child, lakin wallahi I can't provide for him, it becomes wajib upon you. Sah? Understood? طيب. That's with regards to providing for him. Lakin here, مثلا, in this country, what you can do is you can try to adopt that child. If there's no one else to take him, you can try to adopt that child. And then you can apply for benefits for him, child benefit and so on. Is that understood? طيب. And in that case, what you should do is you should look after his wealth for him in the best way. If he's entitled to benefits and so on, then you should look after him, apply for a passport for him, and so on and so forth. Then anything that you would do for your child, then you need to do for that specific child. The third mas'ala is whose lineage does he take? Can you adopt him? For example, now you find the person, you find the child, your name is Abdullah. Can you name him Muhammad ibn Abdullah? No, it's not permissible. Tabanni was permissible pre-Islam. And that's why Zayd ibn Harith, they used to call him Zayd ibn Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Like Allah says, "Ud'uhum li'abaihim." Sah? طيب, call them by their fathers' names. Lakin, what if someone comes to you and says, I am the father's child, I am the child's father? How do you know there's no firash here? You just found the child. There's no proof. Like, whoever claims the child and is sincere, you can tell that they're sincere, and it's possible that they could have given birth to this child, then you give it to him. So, what do I mean by it's possible? So for example, let's say you've got a child, and then a 10-year-old comes and says, that's my son. Obviously it's impossible, صح? طيب. What if, مثلا now, Abdullah comes to me, I find the child, and then Abdullah comes and says, Ustad, that's my child, he's my son.
He's not married.
He's never been married. It's not that he's not married now, he's never been married. So I say, كذاب يعني امشي. It is not possible. Lakin if it is possible that this person could have given birth to this child, then he takes his lineage. طيب خلاص, we finished لقطة. Next باب المسابقات. Inshallah we'll stop there. Continue. What were your questions that you couldn't wait?